Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Crack the Code on AI for Your Business. Right now, AI is nothing new. A lot of companies are starting to implement it. Maybe it's a ChatGPT solution, your own customized chatbot, and there's a lot of activity right now. This webinar we have for you today is to help you move from activity to impact. So before we get started, I want to introduce you to who you'll be hearing from today. I'm Katarina. I'm a business analytics consultant here at SVA, and we also have Jacob McClendon, our principal director of analytics. We are SVA, a business and technology consulting firm. We offer a broad set of services focused on helping organizations leverage technology, data, and process improvements to achieve business outcomes. Some of our main practice areas are listed here in this slide: business evolution, business applications, data analytics and visualization, life sciences, and AI enablement. And our overarching goal is to drive digital transformation by organizing your data, visualizing information clearly, and enabling your business to move forward with confidence. A little bit more about our data and analytics practice. So we help you gain clarity by connecting the dots across your organization. And we do that through four different pillars. We have the data strategy, which is basically aligning your data strategy to your business needs. So we're solving the right problems. Data architecture, which consists of unifying and connecting your data to make it more accessible across your organization. Data visualization, seeing your data in a way that's meaningful and knowing what your data is telling you. And AI enablement, which consists of using your data to reach answers faster and unlocking new possibilities. And throughout all of this, we help you with ongoing support, with coming up with new applications, new use cases as the technology advances every day. So let's get started on why AI clarity matters for your organization. So what's very clear right now is that AI for sure is not like an interest. Everybody is trying to use a bunch of different tools, and there is a lot of different ideas coming up. Leaders want to get started with AI, trying to get a return on investment, productivity gains using AI as a competitive advantage. And there's a lot of competition also in the industry to see who comes up with an AI solution first. However, it's very hard to compete and even interact in this market when there's a new tool basically every week or every 2 weeks, vendors promising you the impossible, and a lot of people on your team already experimenting with a bunch of different tools. What's happening right now and what we see that happens with a lot of AI initiatives is that a lot of them fail, not because the technology doesn't work, it's because the teams aren't aligned. So we see disconnected efforts across teams, everybody experimenting on their own with the tools they think is best, a lot of tools, very little ways of actually measuring the impact of those tools, no governance to guide adoption, and pilots that get stuck. What happens most of the time is that people tend to focus on a solution, an AI tool, an outcome before actually tackling the problems and focusing on where to start. So now that we've talked a little bit about our challenge, we're going to move on to the solution. How do we crack this code? So we propose this three-part framework to assess how to impact and implement AI in your organization. This consists of three different blocks: a focus strategy, starting with the problem before the solution; real results, where we'll dive into the specifics of that POC; and then sustainable adoption and governance, which is about making sure that this AI momentum is long-term. So focus strategy. As I mentioned before, a lot of people focus on the AI solution, the AI product, before focusing on what are we actually trying to fix. So what we recommend first is to identify your goals and pain points. This is just as simple as listing all the problems that your company is facing today. Where are the teams experimenting friction? Where are the bottlenecks in your organization? And then you prioritize the ones small enough to get started quickly. The second step is to assess your organization on how to get there. we are trying to build a roadmap to chase that POC, and we recommend you assess across your problems, your people, your processes, and your platforms. And the third step is to define the initial POC map. Again, we're not trying to boil the ocean and try to come up with as many pain points and many use cases to try out as we can. We need to pick one small but high value project that we want to chase down. And within all of this, it's very important that we also keep in mind governance. A lot of people think that governance is the very last step, but to ensure that we are using AI in the best way and in the safest way as possible, we keep the governance at the very upfront of our plan. Then we move on once we have the problem to building the solution. So building a POC that delivers impact. The first step in this phase is to deploy the POC. You just don't want to launch this AI strategy in the wild. You want to deploy it in a controlled environment where you monitor the adoption and the risk that this POC might have and collect feedback from end users. You want to know if the end users know how to use it well, how it's working, if there are any issues. Then we also enter a pilot retrospective phase where we measure the success and capture insights. In this step, it's also very important that we evaluate the risk and the bias of the product. How is the data being managed? How is the sharing conditions, etc. And then we move on to scale or sunset the POC. So what happens here is that if we have a POC that's working, we move it into production. But at the same time, if the POC is not working and we don't see a long-term plan with this, it's better that we sunset it so we don't waste any money, or we're able to start with a new POC as fast as possible after. Last but not least, we also have the sustainable adoption and governance piece. A lot of people get scared about this piece, but putting it simple is just a playbook with the ownership for AI decisions, the acceptable use policy to make sure that we keep this AI momentum long-term and it's safe for everybody to use. So we define a clear ownership for the AI decisions, and we do that through establishing a cross-functional committee involving different people so we have every area in control. Then we enable the organization for broader adoption. So this means creating a playbook with the acceptable use policies, the communication plan to inform the employees in the company, and also training. So we support the teams through change management and user adoption strategies. And then we also have the monitor, measure, and improve aspect. So we just don't implement an AI solution and basically forget about it. We keep track of it, track the performance, the return on investment, and the ethical compliance for all the cases so we can get the best feedback and refine our model as we keep continuing and implementing other POCs. Now I'll pass it over to Jacob for some real-world AI success stories.
Awesome. Thanks, Katerina. So we just walked through this concept of cracking the code on AI and really visiting a focused strategy, identifying a problem that is solvable and has a high impact, and really gets you real results. And then this overarching layer on sustainable adoption and governance. So I'll walk through two examples that we've seen with our clients here, with their challenge, solution, and the outcomes. So this first one here really is looking at getting to a faster root cause analysis, ultimately improving customer satisfaction. So we have a distribution client who had a challenge where they frequently faced late deliveries, and this was driving customer complaints to increase over time. The data was spread across multiple systems, and they really had no centralized source of truth or place where they could easily get to answers as to why there were delays. It could have been routes or driver behavior or weather. Really, at this point, they were able to just poke through Excel files and manual reports. And ultimately, this was a really reactive and slow state that they were in. From a solution perspective, we helped them build out a Snowflake AI intelligence layer. So we centralized their data inside a Snowflake database, put a data model in place that then could be queried. And Snowflake's AI intelligence product essentially lets you ask plain English questions like what caused delivery delays yesterday. The AI solution there can go work through all of the data that's available to it and automatically surface key drivers of late deliveries and focus areas for improvement as well. So the tangible outcomes here is really one, they got a centralized database that they could have trusted data inside of it. And then really the kind of the gold star for them was the natural language Q&A across numerous data sources that help them understand why certain areas of the business were performing how they were. So ultimately, they got immediate causal insights and could then prioritize how to optimize from there. Our second example here is a warehousing client. They have a lot of staff members and a pretty big team to staff their warehouse. And ultimately, what they saw as a challenge is increasing overtime and the costs associated with that as well. And really, their challenges they were facing were demand spikes, promotions that would lead to kind of these quick rushes of trying to staff accordingly, some pretty big seasonality and labor retention issues as well. They had the data that they needed, and it just lived in these disparate systems. And ultimately, it was similar to the first use case where there's a lot of manual effort to sift through that data to find out what's going on and what's driving these labor costs. So the solution was a machine learning algorithm that essentially could help forecast across their data sources to better understand what they might need from a labor planning perspective tomorrow. And so now they have daily labor plan recommendations by function, and all of their data feeds into this algorithm to help them make informed decisions. So the outcome now is that they've got these automated daily forecasts with timely labor recommendations, and really they've stabilized their labor and staffing across the organization and ultimately got their overtime costs in control. So both of those stories started with organizations understanding where they were in their journey. They knew they had these problems. They knew they had the right people to address those problems. Kind of the big um, missing piece there of the picture was really a strategy. So how can we take this upfront information and turn it into ultimately something that's way better for the business? And AI was a key piece of that. So for us today, one important question is trying to realize where we are on our journey. Where is our organization on this AI journey? So we've got four buckets here. There very well could be more, but the concepts essentially are exploring, implementing, scaling, and transforming. And it's this idea that we're moving from some form of initial interest all the way into a transformed impact at our business or a way that AI can help differentiate your business. From a practical perspective on how you can get there, let's say you're just starting out in that exploring or implementing phase, and you want to be able to kickstart your strategy and your journey. One simple way to do that is really to assess what you have today. The goal is to get clarity on your current reality and really get grounded before you take action. So this looks like meeting with key personnel on your teams to get a quick readout on your people, processes, platforms, and major problems or time sinks across the business. Really, the goal is to identify a couple of these problems and identify, a low risk, high impact use case to get a quick win with AI at the organization. Moving on from there, the goal really is about alignment and establishing a foundation and getting some initial momentum going. So really, you want to set up the conditions for quick wins. How we've seen this be successful in a short time period really is about identifying internal champions who will help kind of lead the charge and make sure that a pilot or a solution is successful at an organization. Alignment is really key here as well, making sure everyone's seeing the same strategy, the same vision, and understanding a communication plan so that the organization can come along with the solution as it's developed. And then really moving forward there, kind of week 3 and onward is about activating a pilot, moving from the planning stage into action. So you might be building or testing a small AI pilot project and involving users early so that they actually fit into the solution. A different take on this could also be if you're working to deploy generative AI tools like ChatGPT at your organization. Week 3 onward really could be when you kick off your training sessions and loop your key people in, identifying how they can leverage these tools to be more productive at the organization. One way that SVA helps people through this is by assessing the current state, enabling transformation, and activating results. So we have this assess, enable, activate framework, and it's all about checking, readiness in an organization and making quality plans that have a high degree of confidence of panning out. The enablement piece really is around training and getting systems, data, processes, and people all the way ready and in place to adopt AI. And the activation phase is really about rolling out pilots or generative AI tools at your company. And a couple of offerings that we have that help people along this journey um, really are listed here. So the first one is all about if you know your organization needs AI, but there's relatively little alignment on where to start, we would recommend going through a full strategy and adoption alignment cycle. This helps you execute an upfront vision and see that all the way through to success. We also have a quick start strategy version. This is for organizations who are aligned on how they want to move forward with AI, but just need a strategy partner. We do offer specific tool set build outs as well. And then ultimately, everyone's wanting to get productive and get a return on leveraging tools like Copilot or ChatGPT at your organization. And so we do offer trainings there as well. So that is it for our content today. If you are interested in talking more or hearing more, we've got a QR code there to set up time with us. We're happy to continue the conversation with you. We also have a January webinar where we'll be doing a quick hands-on training in ChatGPT. We'll walk through prompt engineering and how to get the most out of the tool. And then, of course, we've got contact information on the right-hand side as well. And we'll open it up to any questions that you might have. Katerina, I'll ask one here that I'm seeing. How do you make sure that a team successfully adopts an AI solution?
So I think that the most important thing is that you're focusing on the problems. As I said before, like a lot of teams jump straight into the tools, like let's build that chatbot, let's implement this super cool AI feature. But what's most importantly first is to just write down your pain points, prioritize them, and also make sure that you're involving the people from the very start, because at the end of the day, they are the end users and they're also the people who are in the daily operations. So having them can give you an extra perspective on what to implement and how to implement it as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good perspective. If if your organization was looking to deploy ChatGPT, for example, um, keeping in mind the answer you just gave, what do you think the right first steps would be for them to have a successful deployment?
Well, for example, for ChatGPT, I think one step that a lot of people forget is training. Of course, everybody knows about ChatGPT, but ChatGPT has a lot of different capabilities, such as custom GPTs, projects, deep research. So you need to make sure that your people knows about it and knows how to make the most out of the tool that you're implementing. Also, I think an acceptable use policy, it's super important. It's part of that governance pillar as well, just making sure that everybody knows what questions they can put into ChatGPT, how the data is being used. And when building this governance, have a committee, have a playbook. So
Yeah,
all of these policies are written down somewhere and people are aligned on what they're allowed to do and what is not safe to do.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the communication plan aspect as well, and making sure that the organization is aware of changes coming or aware of really enablement offerings coming as well is really important. We'll take one more minute. If anyone's got any other questions, you can put those into the chat. Otherwise, thank you for attending today, and please reach out if there's things we can further support you with. All right. Katerina, we did have one come in. How do you handle adopting new technologies with the speed at which AI technology is evolving or changing?
Oh, so this is a hard one just because there's a new tool every day. There's a new improvement right now. Not so long ago, we had ChatGPT with the 5.2 model coming up with improvements on Excel and presentation. So it comes from like doing your research, knowing the tools that are out there, but at the same time, keeping in mind that there's specific tools for specific use cases. So like there might be, for example, ChatGPT, which it's pretty good all around, but there might be another tool or solution that's better for, let's say, a predicting issue would be more of a machine learning algorithm. So just trying to see what is the best technology that fits with your use case and the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and I think that speaks nicely with another question about, specific LLM models used by our clients. And again, I think it entirely depends on what's the problem we're trying to solve and which model essentially is best suited to fit that need. Awesome. I don't see any other questions at this point. So thank you again for joining. Please reach out if we can be of any assistance to you, and we'll hopefully see you at the January hands-on ChatGPT training webinar. Thanks.
Thank you.